AITA for getting evicted because of an unspoken no outside food rule? All right, Reddit, buckle up, because I'm genuinely reeling from this and can't figure out if I'm being completely obtuse or if my roommates are just utterly insane. I've been living with my best friend, Chloe, and her long-term partner, David, for about 6 months. We're all in our late 20s, it's a nice 3-bedroom house, and I took the spare room when my last lease ended. Chloe and I have been friends since college, and I really thought this was going to be a great, easy living situation. And for the most part, it has been. We have our separate lives, but we also hang out, watch movies, and split chores pretty evenly. There have been no major blow-ups or disagreements. Until now. There's this thing they do. I've noticed it over the months, but it was always subtle, and I never thought it applied to me or was a rule. Whenever we had friends over and someone brought takeout or leftover food from outside, like a pizza or a doggy bag from a restaurant, Chloe and David would get visibly uncomfortable. They'd make comments like, "Oh, you can just leave that on the counter," or "We already have food, so no worries about that," even if the person was clearly just offering it up for people to share. If someone tried to put in their fridge, David would practically leap to block it, saying things like, "Oh, our fridge is so full, we don't have space," or "We're actually about to clean it out." It was weird, but I just chalked it up to them being a bit particular about their kitchen organization, or maybe they just didn't like other people's leftovers. I figured it wasn't a big deal since I don't often bring outside food home. If I cook, I cook. If I get takeout, I usually just eat it all or toss it. I've always been careful to keep my personal groceries separate in my allotted fridge space. Now to the incident. Yesterday, I woke up with the worst migraine of my life. I mean, pounding head, nausea, light sensitivity, the whole 9 yards. I called out sick from work and just huddled in my bed, trying to survive. My mom, being the angel she is, was worried and offered to drop off some homemade chicken noodle soup. I was practically crying with gratitude. She dropped it off while Chloe and David were at work. It was a nice, big container of homemade soup, still warm. I knew I wouldn't be able to eat it all in one sitting, and I definitely wasn't going to let it go bad. So, after having a small bowl, I put the rest of the container carefully into my designated shelf in the fridge. It fit perfectly, wasn't overflowing, and wasn't touching any of their stuff. I didn't think twice about it. I mean, it's my food in my allocated space, and it's just soup. Now to the incident. About an hour after David got home from work, I finally felt well enough to venture out of my room to get some water. As soon as I stepped into the living room, I could feel the tension. David was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, staring at the fridge, a thunderous expression on his face. Chloe was sitting on the couch looking incredibly uncomfortable. "Finally decided to join the living," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. I was still a bit fuzzy from the migraine, so I just said, "Yeah, feeling a bit better. What's up?" "What's up," he practically growled, "is that you completely disrespected our home. Again." I was genuinely confused. "What are you talking about?" He gestured dramatically towards the fridge. "The soup! You put outside food in our fridge. After all this time, I thought you'd finally picked up on the house rules, but clearly you have no respect." I stared at him, then at Chloe, who was avoiding my gaze. "The soup? My mom brought it for me because I had a migraine. And what house rules? You've never once mentioned a no outside food rule." "It's an unspoken rule," Chloe finally chimed in, her voice meek. "We just assumed you'd get it like everyone else does. We don't like other people's food in our fridge." "An unspoken rule?" I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. "You're seriously telling me I'm supposed to be a mind reader? You've never said a single word about this. And what's the big deal? It's homemade soup. It's not like I brought home a rotten fish or something." Cut me off. It's not about the soup. It's about the principle. It's about respecting our space. We've made it clear to every single guest every time. You just ignore it because you think you're above the rules. "You have never made it clear to me," I insisted, my migraine starting to throb again from the stress. "If this was such an important rule, why wasn't it in our lease agreement? Why wasn't it mentioned when I moved in or at any point in the last 6 months?" The argument devolved from there. David got more and more agitated, accusing me of being selfish, inconsiderate, and a bad roommate. Chloe just sat there looking like she wanted to disappear. Finally, David said, "You know what? This isn't working. We want you to move out. You have 30 days. I was stunned. Evicted. Over a container of soup. An unspoken rule. I packed up the soup, by the way. It's now sitting on my bedroom floor. I feel utterly betrayed by Chloe, who's my best friend, for letting this happen and not backing me up, or more importantly, ever communicating this rule. I'm furious at David for his insane overreaction and for treating me like a criminal. But I'm also questioning if I should have picked up on the hints. Was I really that dense? Is an unspoken rule a valid thing to enforce, especially with such severe consequences? So Reddit, AITA here. Am I the disrespectful, rule-breaking roommate, or are they completely out of line?
Update 1. Okay, Reddit, I'm back. And wow, the comments on my last post were a wild ride. The vast majority of you agreed that Chloe and David were completely unreasonable, and that an unspoken rule that leads to eviction is beyond absurd. Many of you pointed out that Chloe, as my best friend, was especially in the wrong for not communicating this, and for letting David treat me that way. The past few days have been incredibly stressful. I'm now actively looking for a new place to live, which is a nightmare in this market. Financially, it's a huge hit, having to come up with first and last month's rent, plus a security deposit, all on short notice. After my initial post, I confronted Chloe directly. I found her alone in the kitchen, looking pretty miserable. "Chloe," I started, trying to keep my voice calm. "We need to talk, properly, not with David yelling." She immediately got defensive. "Look, I know you're mad, but David has a right to be upset. It's his house too, and he feels like you don't respect it." "Respect it?" I almost laughed. "Chloe, you and I have been best friends for years. You know I'm not a disrespectful person. The only reason this is an issue is because you guys never told me this rule. Not once. How can I respect a rule I don't know exists?" She mumbled something about it being obvious, but I pressed her. "Obvious how? By you vaguely telling other people to keep their takeout on the counter? That's not communicating a household rule to a live-in roommate, Chloe. That's being passive-aggressive." Then, a crucial piece of information came out. "Look," she finally admitted, "David, he has a thing with food. He grew up in a house where his older brothers would always eat his food, and he had food insecurity for a while. He's very particular about our food in our fridge. He gets really anxious if there's outside stuff in there." My jaw dropped. "Chloe, are you serious? He has actual food insecurity and a food anxiety, and you never, ever told me this? Not when I moved in? Not when I noticed you guys acting weird with other people's food? This is a serious issue, not some quirky preference." She just shrugged, looking down. "I know, I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. I thought it would just be easier if everyone just got it." "Easier for whom, Chloe?" I asked, feeling a cold knot form in my stomach. "Easier for you not to have an uncomfortable conversation? Because now I'm being evicted over it. This isn't just a thing. This is something that impacts David's mental health, and it's something I absolutely would have respected if I had known. I would have kept my soup in a cooler in my room, or eaten it all, or thrown it out. But you deliberately withheld crucial information, and now I'm homeless in 30 days. She started to cry. "I'm sorry, I really am. I tried to talk to David, but he's just so set on it. He says it's a breach of trust and he can't feel comfortable with you here anymore." I honestly don't know what to say to that. I feel a mixture of anger, hurt, and a strange empathy for David's underlying issues, but that empathy is completely overshadowed by their awful communication and Chloe's betrayal. She's my best friend, and she chose to protect David's unspoken, uncommunicated anxieties over my living situation and our friendship. I've told her that our friendship is seriously damaged, and I don't know if it can recover from this. She's tried to offer help with apartment hunting, but it feels hollow. I'm moving forward with finding a new place, but this sting of betrayal is incredibly deep. I'm still 100% convinced I'm not the ATA for not knowing an unspoken rule, especially one rooted in such a sensitive issue that was never disclosed. The eviction still feels like an extreme, unfair punishment. I'll provide a final update once I've secured new housing and have officially moved out. This is a mess. Final update. It's done. I've moved out. The last few weeks have been a blur of apartment hunting, packing, and trying to keep my emotions in check. I found a great little apartment with a much more communicative landlord, and I'm slowly settling in. The move out was awkward, to say the least. Chloe was home and tried to be helpful, offering to carry boxes, but the tension between us was thick enough to cut with a knife. David was conveniently out of the house the entire time, which I was honestly relieved about. I didn't want another confrontation. As I was loading the last of my things into the moving truck, Chloe approached me again. She looked genuinely distraught. She said, "Please, can we talk after you're settled? I really don't want to lose our friendship over this." I just looked at her. "Chloe, you chose David and his unspoken rules over telling your best friend something crucial that affected her ability to live here. You let him evict me over soup when a simple conversation months ago could have prevented all of this. I'm moving, I'm stressed, and I'm heartbroken. I need time. A lot of time. Don't expect me to reach out." And with that, I got into the car and drove away. It felt like the end of an era, and a very painful one. I've been reflecting a lot since then. I still firmly believe I am not the ATA for not magically intuiting their unspoken rule. It's one thing to have quirks, but it's entirely another to enforce a critical boundary, like what can go in the fridge, with such severe consequences, eviction, when you've never actually communicated it. Especially when that rule stems from a genuine anxiety issue. If David truly has food insecurity, that's a serious thing, and it should have been part of the initial roommate discussion, or at the very least communicated clearly and kindly when it became apparent I wasn't getting the hint. Chloe's role in this is what hurts the most. As my best friend, she had a responsibility to advocate for me, or at least to clearly communicate what she knew about David's issues. Her silence and her choice to let me be blindsided and then evicted over soup, when a simple conversation months ago could have prevented all of this, speaks volumes. It's hard to imagine trusting her again in the same way. The whole situation taught me a harsh lesson about communication in shared living and in friendships. Don't assume anything. Ask questions. And if a rule isn't written down or explicitly stated, it's not a rule you can be reasonably expected to follow. I'm still navigating the emotional fallout. Losing a friendship and having to suddenly uproot my life is tough. But I'm also relieved to be out of a situation where I was constantly walking on eggshells, unknowingly breaking rules that only existed in someone else's head. So, in conclusion, am I the ATA? No, absolutely not. They were the ones who failed to communicate and then acted disproportionately when their unstated expectations weren't met. I'm sad about the friendship, but I'm also moving forward with a clearer understanding of what I need in a living situation and in a friend.